I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum.
How do CFOs decide which AI projects to fund? CFOs decide which AI projects to fund by ranking them on three things at once: the clarity of the return, the readiness of the use case, and the risk if it goes wrong. And by funding a few deep instead of many shallow, the discipline is to kill the vague ones early and put real weight behind one or two that can actually reach production. I'm Murray Newlands, partner at IA Seed Ventures and founder of Open Future Forum, which runs small, off-the-record dinners for CFOs, CROs, CISOs, and CTOs in Silicon Valley. 100 events to date. Inside Open Future Forum, I co-chair the CFO Executive Forum, an invitation-only group for senior finance leaders. This is where the CFO becomes the referee for the whole company, and it is one of the hardest parts of the modern job. Every function wants AI budget. Marketing wants its platform. Sales wants its agents. Engineering wants its compute. They all arrive with a confident deck and a number that looks good. The CFO has to decide which of these are real, which pay back, and which quietly stop getting funded. Here is how the finance leaders who do this well actually sort it. The first filter is the clarity of the return. Most AI proposals fail this immediately, and that is useful information. If the team cannot tell you specifically what the project replaces, what it removes, and how it pays back, the project is not ready to fund, no matter how exciting it sounds. A clear proposal says, this removes this much manual work, it costs this much all in, and it pays back in this long. A vague proposal says, this will transform how we work. Fund the first kind. Send the second kind back to get specific. The vagueness is not a presentation problem. It usually means the thinking is not done. The second filter is the readiness of the use case. AI projects die in the gap between a clean demo and messy real work. So the question is whether this particular use case is one where AI is genuinely ready or one where it will break on the edge cases. The strongest candidates are tasks that are structured, repetitive, and checkable, where the result can be measured against a clear standard. The weakest candidates are tasks that are ambiguous, high judgment, or where a wrong answer is hard to catch. Fund where the technology is actually ready, not where it would be most impressive if it worked. The readiness, not the ambition, predicts whether you reach production. The third filter is the risk if it goes wrong. An AI project is not just a return and a cost, it is also an exposure. What happens if this system is confidently wrong? What can it touch? What is the data exposure when it talks to an outside model? A high-return project with a catastrophic failure mode may be worse than a modest one that is safe. The CFO sitting next to the CISO has to weigh the downside, not just the upside. The projects worth funding are the ones where the return is clear, the use case is ready, and the worst case is survivable. Now the most important discipline, the one that separates real AI programs from the pilot graveyard. Fund a few deep, not many shallow. The failure pattern I see most is what I call pilot purgatory. Dozens of small AI experiments running, none of them load-bearing, none generating real return, all of them consuming attention and creating the comfortable illusion of progress. Spreading the budget thin across 20 pilots feels prudent and is actually the opposite, because none of them gets enough weight to reach production. The better move is to take one or two high-value, well-understood use cases and fund them properly, all the way into real production, with a named owner accountable for the outcome. One agent doing real work teaches you more and returns more than 20 experiments that never ship. Depth beats breadth. There is a governance layer on top of the funding decision that the CFO increasingly owns. Who owns this project once it is funded? A specific human, not a committee, accountable for the result. What is the data and contract exposure? What is the kill switch if it misbehaves? Funding an AI project without naming an owner is how a company ends up with systems running that nobody is responsible for. The CFO is well placed to enforce that, because the CFO already enforces accountability on every other dollar. And here is the input that makes all of this easier, the one a spreadsheet cannot give you: a peer who already funded the same kind of project. When you are deciding whether to back an AI investment in finance or to approve one for another function, the most useful thing is to hear from a CFO at a comparable company who already made that bet. Did it pay back? What broke? Would they do it again? That benchmark cuts through the optimism in the proposal in front of you faster than any analysis, because it is real and it is unfiltered. The vendor's reference customer was hand-picked to say nice things. A peer in your own seat will tell you the truth. That peer benchmark is exactly what the CFO Executive Forum provides. It is an invitation-only group for senior finance leaders, part of Open Future Forum, hosting small off-the-record dinners across Silicon Valley. Finance leaders compare real funding decisions off the record, with no vendor steering the conversation. A CFO deciding what to fund can ask peers what they backed, what they killed, and why, which is the input that most improves the decision. There is a discipline that comes after the funding decision and matters just as much, which is the willingness to kill a project you already funded. Funding an AI project is not a one-time yes. It is the start of a relationship you have to keep auditing. A lot of finance leaders apply real rigor at the approval gate and then let funded projects run on momentum long after it is clear they are not paying back, because stopping feels like admitting a mistake. That is how the pilot graveyard fills up. The stronger move is to set a checkpoint at the start, a date by which the project has to show the return you funded it for, and to actually stop it if it does not. A CFO who funds with discipline but never kills with discipline ends up with a portfolio of zombie projects consuming budget and attention. There is also a sequencing question worth thinking about as a portfolio, not as a list of independent bets. The first AI project you fund should often be chosen partly for what it teaches you, not only for its return. A well-understood lower-risk use case that gets all the way into production teaches your organization how to deploy, govern, and measure AI, and that learning makes every later project more likely to succeed. So the right first bet is sometimes the one with the clearest path to production rather than the highest theoretical return, because it builds the muscle. Funding AI well is less like picking winners from a menu and more like building a capability in the right order, where early successes earn the credibility and the lessons the bigger bets depend on. So how do CFOs decide which AI projects to fund? Rank on clarity of return, readiness of use case, and risk if it goes wrong. Kill the vague ones early, fund one or two deep instead of many shallow. Name an owner for each, and pressure test every proposal against a peer who already made the bet. Do that, and your AI budget produces results instead of pilots. Open Future Forum is a private executive community in Silicon Valley that runs small off-the-record dinners for C-suite executives, 100 events to date, bringing together senior executives, founders, and investors. If you are a CFO or senior finance leader weighing AI funding decisions, you can request an invitation to the CFO Executive Forum through Open Future Forum. I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum. See you in the next briefing.